The Grand Assembly Chamber stretched 3 kilometers in every direction. Ambassador David Torres stood alone in the center, suspended in a glowing field that held him motionless above the polished floor. Around him, arranged in spiraling tiers that rose into shadow, sat representatives from 7,000 alien species. Their eyes, sensors, and consciousness fields all focused on him with the weight of galactic judgment. Torres kept his breathing steady. His gray diplomatic uniform was clean and pressed despite 3 days of continuous deliberation. He had prepared for this moment for months, but nothing could truly prepare a human for standing before the most powerful governing body in the known universe. At the highest tier, bathed in blue light, the Adjudicator Prime spoke. Velmara was a being of living crystal, her body refracting light into patterns that hurt human eyes. Her voice came through neural translators implanted in Torres's skull, bypassing sound entirely to appear as thought. The species known as humanity stands accused of 847 violations of peaceful conduct. The evidence is clear. The verdict is decided. We are here only to determine the severity of sanctions. Torres said nothing. Not yet. Velmara gestured with a crystalline limb, and holographic displays materialized around the chamber. They showed images of human ships, weapon systems, industrial complexes. 17 standard cycles ago, we welcomed humanity into galactic civilization. We offered them knowledge, technology, and protection under the Harmonious Technology Accords. These accords exist for one purpose: to prevent emerging species from destroying themselves or threatening others. The displays shifted, showing scan data, energy signatures, mathematical formulas that cascaded across multiple dimensions. 3 cycles ago, our border patrol encountered a human vessel in contested space. Standard protocol required a deep sensor scan for catalog purposes. What we discovered violated every restriction we had placed upon humanity. A massive hologram appeared, showing a human warship. The Ens Resolute hung in space like a predator, its dark hull absorbing light. Beside it, streams of data flowed faster than most species could read. An alien representative stood abruptly. He belonged to the Thalox hegemony, a species with 6 arms and skin like burnished metal. His translator crackled with anger. These readings are impossible. This vessel contains weapon systems that exceed Class 7 limitations by factors of 10. Energy signatures we cannot classify. Materials that should not exist. This is either sensor malfunction or deliberate deception. Torres finally spoke, his voice calm and clear. The readings are accurate. The chamber erupted. Thousands of voices in hundreds of languages created a wall of sound that the translation system struggled to process. Some species shouted accusations. Others demanded immediate action. A few simply stared at Torres with what might have been fear. Velmara raised her crystalline form higher, and silence fell like a hammer. Ambassador Torres, do you confess to constructing military capabilities beyond your authorized technological level? I confess, Torres said slowly, that you should not have scanned our ship without permission. The Thalox representative's skin flushed darker. You invoke procedural objections when faced with evidence of treaty violations? Humanity signed the Harmonious Technology Accords. You agreed to technological restrictions designed to protect both yourselves and galactic civilization. Torres met the alien's multifaceted eyes. We agreed to restrictions on specific technologies. Plasma cannons, graviton projectors, quantum fold drives. We do not use those technologies. Then what do you use? Velmara demanded. Different ones. The holographic displays shifted again, showing more scan data from the Resolute. A smaller alien representing the Prixian Commonwealth stood and spoke with measured tones. Ambassador Torres, we understand that emerging species often push boundaries. But what our sensors detected aboard your vessel suggests capabilities that rival or exceed the most advanced military powers in the galaxy. Powers that have developed their technology over tens of thousands of years. Humanity has been part of galactic civilization for less than 2 decades. This disparity is alarming. Torres nodded respectfully. I understand your concern. From your perspective, we look like a potential threat. An unknown quantity with unexplained power. Yes, the Prixian admitted. Then let me offer some perspective of our own, Torres said. He made a gesture and his own holographic display activated. It showed Earth's solar system as it appeared 17 years ago at first contact. A single planet with basic colonies on its moon and Mars, primitive by galactic standards. When you offered us membership in the Galactic Council, we were grateful, Torres continued. You gave us access to databases containing millions of years of accumulated knowledge. You shared star charts, scientific principles, and cultural exchanges. It was generous. The display shifted, showing the harmonious technology accords. Dense legal text in multiple languages. But within the first year, our scientists noticed something interesting about these accords. They claimed to protect us from dangerous technologies. Yet they specifically restricted technologies that would allow us to compete militarily with established powers. They limited our industrial growth. They controlled our expansion into space. The restrictions were not about our safety. They were about maintaining the existing power structure. Angry denials erupted from multiple representatives. The Thalax delegates shouted that the Accords had prevented countless wars. A serpentine alien from the Corvellian swarms insisted that restrictions were necessary for galactic stability. Torres waited for silence before continuing. We made a choice. Publicly, we would comply with your restrictions. Privately, we would do what humans have always done when faced with rules that limit our potential. And what is that? Velmara asked, her harmonics sharp. Find another way. Torres expanded his hologram. Now it showed not just Earth's solar system, but dozens of star systems surrounding it. Each one contained massive structures, shipyards, defense platforms, industrial complexes that dwarfed anything the Council knew humanity possessed. The chamber fell silent. The scope of what they were seeing was staggering. When your scientists gave us access to galactic technology databases, they assumed we would follow the same developmental paths your species did, Torres explained. Linear progression, predictable milestones, established scientific principles. But humanity does not work that way. We look at your million-year-old technologies and ask, why did you do it that way? What if we tried something different? He highlighted a section of scan data from the Resolute. You use gravitational fold drives for faster-than-light travel? Proven technology, reliable, but expensive and limited. Our scientists studied your drives and noticed they required massive energy cores and rare materials. So we asked, what if we do not fold space at all? What if we manipulate quantum probability instead? The Prixian representative leaned forward, fascinated despite herself. That should not be possible. Quantum probability collapse at macro scales would require energy outputs beyond any known power source. It would, Torres agreed, if you tried to force the collapse. We do not force it. We convince reality that our ship is already where we want to be. The universe handles the rest. Velmara's crystalline structure pulsed with rapid calculations. You are describing technology that should not exist. Principles that violate established physics. Principles that violate your understanding of physics, Torres corrected gently. The universe is bigger and stranger than any single species comprehends. Humanity has been doing science for thousands of years, not millions. We have no established paradigms to limit our thinking. We can try things that seem impossible to you because we do not know they are impossible. The Thalax representative slammed a fist against his console. Enough philosophy. You have violated treaties. You have built weapons in secret. You have deceived the Council. These are acts of war preparation. We cannot allow a species with your capabilities to operate without oversight. Velmara nodded slowly. The Thalax speaks harsh truth. Ambassador Torres, your explanations do not change the facts. You have broken our laws. The Council must now vote on sanctions. Torres had expected this. Everything so far had gone according to plan. Now came the critical moment. Before you vote, he said calmly, I invoke Article 203 of the Council Charter. The right of explanation. Velmara's form flickered with something like annoyance. This is highly irregular. The evidence is presented. The violations are admitted. What more explanation is required? I need to explain why you are about to make the worst mistake in galactic history. The chamber went silent. Torres's voice carried no threat, no anger. Just certainty. He expanded his hologram again. This time it showed not just human installations, but something else. Energy signatures. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. All matching the impossible readings from the Resolute. They filled the display like stars in the night sky, spreading across multiple star systems in patterns that suggested coordination and purpose. You scanned one ship? Torres said quietly. Let me show you what you missed. The display zoomed out, revealing the true scope of humanity's military development. Not just the Resolute, not just a few dozen vessels, but an entire fleet of ships, each one incorporating technologies the galaxy had never seen. Defense networks spanning years. Weapon systems that made the Council's most advanced military. Hardware looked primitive. The silence in the chamber was absolute. 7,000 species stared at the evidence of humanity's secret military buildup, with expressions ranging from shock to terror. Torres let them absorb the information for several long seconds. Then he spoke again, his voice cutting through their fear. You are afraid of what we have built. You see us as a threat, and you are preparing to respond with sanctions, restrictions, and military force if necessary. He paused. But while you have been debating humanity's threat level, someone else has been watching. Someone who sees the galaxy very differently than we do. He input another command. The hologram shifted one final time, showing not human ships, but something approaching from outside the galaxy. Massive energy signatures moving in formation. Hundreds of vessels, each one larger than any human or council ship. Their design was alien in ways that went beyond mere aesthetics. They looked wrong, as if they operated on principles that violated natural law. They are called the Vexcari, Torres said. They are an extragalactic invasion force. And they will be here in 3 days. The Grand Assembly Chamber descended into chaos. 7,000 species representatives began shouting simultaneously. Translation systems overloaded, trying to process the cacophony of demand, denial, and disbelief. Security protocols activated throughout the station as species attempted to contact their home governments and military forces. Velmara, crystalline form, burned with intense light as she processed information at maximum capacity. Silence, she commanded, her harmonics cutting through the noise like a blade. The chamber fell quiet. Though tension hung in the air like electricity before a storm, the Thalax representative was the first to recover his composure. He stood, all 6 arms gesturing at the holographic display showing the approaching fleet. This is a human trick, a convenient threat revealed at the moment of your judgment. You fabricated this invasion to escape consequences for your treaty violations. Torres shook his head slowly. Your own sensor networks detected the Vexcari fleet 6 months ago. Your scientists classified them as natural gravitational anomalies because their energy signatures did not match any known propulsion system. Check your records. The data is there. The Prixian representative was already accessing her datapad, fingers moving rapidly across its surface. Her expression shifted from skepticism to confusion to something approaching horror. Council archives confirm multiple anomalous gravitational readings along the trajectory Ambassador Torres has displayed. Analysis reports dated back 8 months. They were investigated and dismissed as natural phenomena caused by dark matter clustering. Torres expanded his hologram, showing the trajectory of the approaching fleet in detail. They were dismissed because the Vexcari do not use technology that follows galactic principles. They are from outside this galaxy. They have been consuming galaxies of resources for millions of years, moving from one to the next like locusts through a field. Velmara moved closer to the display, her crystalline structure refracting the holographic light into rainbow patterns. You claim to have information about an extragalactic threat that our own intelligence services missed. How is this possible? Because we were looking, Torres said simply. 3 years ago, when your patrol scanned the Resolute and discovered our technological capabilities, we knew this day would come. We knew you would see us as a threat. We knew you would seek to restrict or control us. So we prepared for the worst. He brought up new data showing human deep space monitoring stations positioned throughout intergalactic space. While you debated sanctions against humanity, we deployed stealth vessels equipped with sensor arrays designed to detect threats your conventional technology cannot see. We found the Vexcari 7 months after we began searching. A representative from a species Torres did not recognize stood and spoke through his translator. If you discovered this threat months ago, why did you not inform the Council immediately? Torres met the alien's gaze steadily. Because you would not have believed us. An emerging species, barely 2 decades in galactic civilization, claiming to have discovered an existential threat that your own sensors missed? You would have dismissed it as manipulation or incompetence? You needed to see proof. And more importantly, you needed to understand what humanity can do before you saw that proof. The Thalox representative's skin flushed darker with anger. So you allowed this invasion fleet to approach undetected while playing political games? You risked billions of lives for strategic advantage? No, Torres said firmly. We monitored the Vexcari continuously. We analyzed their capabilities. We developed countermeasures. We prepared humanity and we prepared our strategy for this moment. If we had revealed the threat earlier, the Council would have mobilized using conventional tactics and conventional technology. Against the Vexcari, that would have failed catastrophically. Velmara S. Harmonix carried sharp demand. Explain this claim. The Galactic Council commands the military might of thousands of species. Our combined fleets have maintained peace and security for over 10,000 years. Why would we fail against this threat? Torres gestured and the hologram shifted to show detailed scans of Vexcari vessels. The data was dense and complex, but certain elements stood out even to non-technical observers. Hull compositions that absorbed energy. Propulsion systems that operated on unknown principles. Weapon signatures that suggested devastating kinetic force. The Vexcari do not fight like galactic species, Torres explained. They do not use energy shields because their hulls are made of a self-repairing metamaterial that adapts to damage. They do not use plasma weapons or particle beams. They accelerate physical projectiles to relativistic speeds and let physics do the rest. They do not negotiate or communicate. They simply consume everything in their path and move on. The Prixian representative had been studying the data intently. Now she spoke with trembling voice. Our standard defensive protocols are designed around energy weapon exchanges. Our shields are optimized to deflect directed energy attacks. Our tactics assume enemies will use similar technology. If what Ambassador Torres claims is accurate, our conventional approach would be largely ineffective. Worse than ineffective, Torres said. The Vexcari are an evolutionary algorithm. They learn from every engagement. Every tactic you use against them, they analyze and develop counters. They have consumed 47 galaxies before this one. They have seen every conventional military strategy imaginable. If you face them with traditional forces using traditional tactics, they will adapt and destroy you. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The implications were sinking in. If Torres was telling the truth, the galaxy faced an enemy unlike any it had encountered before. An enemy that could not be defeated through superior firepower or established military doctrine. The Thalox representative broke the silence, his voice lacking its earlier aggression. Even if we accept your claims about this Vexcari threat, it does not absolve humanity's treaty violations. You still developed weapons in secret. You still deceived the Council. We developed different weapons, Torres corrected. The harmonious technology accords restricted specific technologies. Plasma cannons. Graviton projectors. Quantum compression drives. We do not use any of those. We developed alternatives that your treaties never thought to restrict because they never occurred to you as possibilities. He brought up schematics of human weapon systems. They look strange compared to galactic military hardware. Less elegant, more aggressive. But the underlying principles were sound, just approached from completely different angles. When humanity gained access to galactic scientific databases, we did not just copy your technology, Torres continued. We studied the gaps. The paths not taken? The questions your species stopped asking millions of years ago because you found answers that worked. We asked those questions again and found different answers. Velmara studied the human schematics with what might have been grudging interest. You claim your technology is superior because it is different? Not superior, Torres said. Complementary. Galactic technology evolved along certain paths because those paths were efficient and reliable. But efficiency breeds predictability. The Vexkari can counter predictable technology. They cannot counter technology that operates on completely different principles because they have never encountered it before. The Prixian representative spoke carefully. Ambassador Torres, are you suggesting that humanity's unconventional approach to technology might be effective against this invasion force precisely because it does not follow established patterns? I am suggesting, Torres replied, that the galaxy needs humanity's perspective to survive this threat. Your military might is vast, your experience is deep, but your thinking has become rigid. Humanity brings chaos and creativity. Together we might have a chance. A smaller representative, barely visible in the upper tiers, spoke through its translator. This sounds like negotiation. You reveal a threat and then position humanity as essential to defeating it? How convenient for your species. Torres nodded, acknowledging the point. It is convenient. It is also true? The Vexkari are coming regardless of our political situation. You can choose to face them while viewing humanity as an enemy, or you can choose to face them as allies. But make no mistake, they are coming. The Thalox representative had been conferring with his government via secure channels. Now he stood again, his stance less aggressive but still wary. Our military intelligence has confirmed the gravitational anomalies Ambassador Torres referenced. Analysis suggests they match the trajectory he displayed. If these anomalies are indeed an invasion fleet, they will reach Council space in approximately 3 standard cycles. 3 days. The time limit hung in the air like a countdown. Velmara's crystalline structure pulsed with complex patterns as she processed the situation. The Council finds itself in an unprecedented position. We called this session to sanction humanity for treaty violations. Instead, we face claims of an existential threat that requires human cooperation to defeat. This situation demands careful consideration. With respect, Adjudicator, Torres said, we do not have time for careful consideration. The Vexkari will not wait for political deliberation. They will arrive, and they will attack. The question before this council is simple. Do you face them divided, or do you face them united? Before Velmara could respond, emergency alarms echoed throughout the assembly chamber. Red lights flashed across multiple displays. A Corvellian technician's voice cut through translation systems with urgent report. Adjudicator Prime, we have multiple contacts entering the outer system. Configuration matches the profiles Ambassador Torres displayed. Energy signatures confirmed. The main holographic display shifted, showing real-time sensor data from the Council Station's defense network. Massive objects were translating from faster-than-light speeds into normal space at the edge of the system. 372 distinct signatures, each one radiating impossible amounts of energy. The Vexkari had arrived early, the Prixian representative's voice barely carried. Ambassador Torres, you said 3 days. Torres stared at the display, his face pale. They must have detected the Council Station's energy signature and accelerated. They always go for centers of government first. Velmara S. harmonics cut through rising panic. All Council Defense Forces mobilize immediately. Priority Alpha authorization. All species contribute available vessels to defensive formation. Ambassador Torres, if humanity wishes to prove its value to this council, Now is the time. Torres activated his communication system, establishing encrypted link to Earth. When the connection stabilized, Admiral Thomas Archer appeared on the display, his expression grim. Admiral, the Vexkari are here. 14 hours ahead of projection. How soon can you NSC forces reach Council space? Archer glanced at something off-screen, then back to Torres. We positioned assets throughout the region as contingency. We anticipated early arrival. Human ships are already in position. Torres felt a surge of relief. How many? 63 vessels? Including the Resolute. Archer paused. David, this is it. Everything we have been preparing for. Do not waste this opportunity. The communication ended. Torres turned back to face Velmara and the assembled council. Humanity is ready to fight alongside you. But I need command authority over joint tactical operations. Your forces are powerful, but they think conventionally. Against the Vexkari, conventional thinking means death. The Thalox representative erupted. You expect us to place our fleets under human command? This is outrageous. This is survival, Torres shot back. You can maintain your pride and lose, or you can trust us and have a chance. Choose quickly. We have about 12 hours before they reach weapons range. The assembly chamber transformed from a court of judgment into a military command center within minutes. Holographic tactical displays replaced legal evidence. Species representatives abandoned their seats to establish communication with their home fleets. The carefully maintained order of galactic civilization collapsed into controlled chaos. Velmara stood at the center of the maelstrom, her crystalline form processing thousands of information streams simultaneously. Around her, military commanders from dozens of species shouted coordinates, fleet positions, and tactical recommendations. The harmonious government that had ruled for millennia now faced its greatest test. Torres remained in the command nexus beside Velmara, accessing human tactical data through his neural interface. The approaching Vexkari fleet was now clearly visible on long-range sensors. 372 capital vessels, each one the size of a small moon. Thousands of smaller attack craft swarmed around them like insects protecting a hive. The Thalox military commander, General Kresh, materialized via hologram beside them. His 6 arms moved rapidly across virtual controls as he coordinated his species' response. Thalox defensive fleet is mobilizing. 247 vessels will reach the Council Station within 8 hours. Our dreadnoughts carry enough firepower to crack planets. This invasion force will learn to fear galactic might. Torres studied the tactical display and felt cold certainty settle in his stomach. General, with respect, your dreadnoughts are designed to fight other galactic species. The Vexkari operate on different principles. Kresh's skin flushed with irritation. I have commanded fleets for 60 standard years. I have won 37 major engagements. Do not presume to lecture me on military strategy, human. Before Torres could respond, more fleet commanders joined the tactical conference. The Corvellian swarm committed 3 million fighter craft. The Prixian Commonwealth deployed their carrier groups. Smaller species contributed what they could. Within hours, a defensive fleet began to assemble that represented the combined military power of thousands of civilizations. The Prixian commander Lyris appeared on the tactical display, her scaled features showing concern. Proposed defensive formation follows protocol. Theta 9. We establish concentric spheres around the Council Station with overlapping fields of fire. The Vexkari will have to push through multiple defensive layers to reach their target. This formation has proven successful in 127 previous engagements. Torres examined the formation and saw the fatal flaw immediately. Commander Lyris, all 127 of those engagements were against species using similar technology. The Vexkari do not use energy shields. They will not slow down for your defensive layers. They will punch straight through. Lyris's expression tightened. Then what do you suggest, Ambassador? Torres brought up his own tactical data, showing the positions of human vessels throughout the system. 63 ships, distributed in a pattern that looked random until you understood the underlying strategy. Humans do not fight in defensive formations. We fight in networks. Each vessel is positioned to control a specific volume of space. We do not meet the enemy head-on. We force them to fight on our terms. General Kresh studied the human positions with skepticism. Your vessels are scattered across half the system. This violates basic tactical principles. You have no concentrated firepower. No unified front. The enemy will divide and destroy you piecemeal. The enemy will try, Torres agreed. But our ships are not independent units. They are nodes in a tactical network. When one ship acts, all ships respond. We do not need to concentrate firepower because we can concentrate effects. Velmara's harmonics carried sharp demand. Explain these effects, Ambassador Torres. The Council forces are mobilizing under conventional doctrine. If your approach is superior, you must demonstrate why. Torres activated a simulation on the main display. It showed a Vexkari vessel approaching a human ship. The human ship did not fire conventional weapons. Instead, it deployed something called a reality anchor, a device that stabilized spacetime in a specific volume. When the Vexkari ship entered that volume, its exotic propulsion system failed. It became trapped in normal physics, vulnerable to conventional attack. This is one example, Torres said. We have dozens of systems designed to control the battlefield rather than simply destroy enemies. Reality anchors, quantum mines, probability disruptors, temporal shear generators. None of these weapons exist in galactic military doctrine because your species stopped exploring unconventional warfare paths millions of years ago. A new voice joined the tactical conference. Commodore Rebecca Halley appeared via hologram from the bridge of the UNS Valiant. She looked tired but focused. Ambassador Torres, this is Commodore Halley. Human fleet is in position and ready for engagement. We have analyzed Vexkari approach vectors and identified optimal intervention points. Torres felt relief at seeing Hale's competent presence. Commodore, we need to demonstrate human capabilities to Council forces without compromising operational security. Can you run a limited engagement simulation? Halley nodded and began entering commands. The main tactical display shifted, showing a computer-generated battle between human forces and Vexkari attackers. The simulation played out in compressed time, showing how human weapons and tactics created cascading effects that disrupted enemy formations and created vulnerabilities. The Council, military commanders watched in silence. Some showed skepticism. Others showed fascination. All of them recognized that they were seeing something fundamentally different from conventional warfare. General Kresh broke the silence. This simulation assumes perfect coordination between human vessels. In actual combat, communications delay and tactical confusion would prevent such sync. Renized response. Not for us, Halley said calmly. Human ships use hybrid AI command systems. They think faster than biological commanders and coordinate at the speed of light. Our tactical response time is measured in milliseconds. The Corvellian swarm commander, who had been silent until now, spoke with clicking harmonics. AI command systems are forbidden under the Treaty of Silicon Peace. The machine wars of the Fourth Epoch nearly destroyed galactic civilization. The Council banned artificial intelligence specifically to prevent such catastrophe from recurring. Torres had expected this objection. The machine wars happened because ancient species tried to create AI that thought like biological beings. They failed and created intelligence that viewed biological life as inefficient. Humanity took a different approach. Our AI systems are built on principles of human creativity, ethics, and irrationality. They do not think like machines. They think like augmented humans. Velmara's crystalline structure pulsed with rapid patterns. This is deeply concerning. You have violated not just the harmonious technology accords but the Treaty of Silicon Peace you have developed. The very technology that nearly destroyed. U.S., we develop different technology that you classify as AI because you have no other category for it. Torres corrected. Our systems are not independent intelligences. They are extensions of human thought. Tools, not entities. Before the argument could continue, the tactical display flashed urgent warnings. The Vexkari fleet had completed its translation into normal space and was accelerating toward the Council Station at impossible speeds. Their velocity exceeded anything galactic sensors had recorded from ships of such mass. Contact in 11 hours, a technician reported. Updating defensive projections. Torres watched the enemy fleet approach and felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. Everything humanity had prepared for was about to be tested. If they failed, Earth would be next. If they succeeded, humanity would earn its place among the stars through blood and sacrifice. Adjudicator Velmara? Torres said formally, I request temporary joint command authority over defensive operations. Not to replace Council commanders, but to coordinate human assets with galactic forces. We have 6 hours before the enemy enters engagement range. That is enough time to adjust your formations and integrate our tactical approach. Velmara was silent for a long moment, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns that suggested intense internal debate. Finally, her harmonics carried reluctant acceptance. The Council grants you limited command authority, Ambassador Torres. But understand this, if your strategies fail, if your promises prove empty, humanity will be held accountable not just for treaty violations, but for the lives lost following your tactical decisions. Torres felt the weight of those words. Understood, Adjudicator? I would not have it any other way. For the next 6 hours, Torres and Hale worked with Council military commanders to modify defensive plans. It was like trying to teach a new language to people who had spoken only one dialect for their entire lives. General Kresh resisted every suggestion. Commander Lyris was more open but struggled to implement tactics that violated her training. The Corvillian swarm commander simply could not comprehend why human vessels were positioned in locations that made no strategic sense according to conventional doctrine, but gradually, a hybrid battle plan emerged. Council forces would maintain their conventional formations, providing the appearance of traditional defense. Human vessels would operate in the gaps, using unconventional weapons to disrupt enemy cohesion and create opportunities for concentrated fire. Torres stood in the command nexus, watching countdown timers tick toward 0. Around him, representatives from 7,000 species waited in tense silence. The political debates had stopped. The accusations had ceased. Now there was only the approaching enemy and the desperate hope that somehow, impossibly, they could survive. Commodore Hale's voice came through the communication system, calm despite the circumstances. All human vessels report ready status. Weapons systems charged. Tactical networks synchronized. We are go for engagement. General Kresh's hologram stood rigid, his 6 arms crossed in a gesture that might have been prayer or preparation. Thalok's fleet is in position. May the ancestors guide our aim. Commander Lyris's scaled features showed determination. Prixian forces ready? All ships understand the battle plan. We fight for the galaxy. The countdown reached 0. At the edge of the system. The Vexkari fleet opened fire. Thousands of projectiles launched simultaneously from the enemy vessels. They were not missiles or torpedoes in the conventional sense. They were simply masses of ultra-dense matter accelerated to 98% of light speed. At such velocities, even a small object became a devastating weapon. Council defensive systems activated. Energy shields flared to life. Point defense weapons began tracking incoming projectiles. Tens of thousands of weapon emplacements fired in coordinated patterns, designed to intercept incoming fire. The relativistic projectiles punched through shields like paper. Defense fire destroyed some but missed most. The first impacts hit Council ships with devastating force. Hulls designed to withstand plasma cannons and particle beams crumpled like foil. Ships exploded into clouds of debris. In the first 30 seconds of engagement, the galaxy lost 43 vessels. Torres watched the carnage with cold certainty. Everything was proceeding exactly as human analysts had predicted. The Vexkari were designed to counter conventional defenses. Their tactics had been refined across millions of years and 47 conquered galaxies, but they had never fought humans before. All human vessels. Torres commanded, "Execute Protocol Achilles, Phase 1. Across the system, 63 human ships activated their reality anchors simultaneously. Reality itself rippled across the battlefield as human technology reshaped local spacetime. The Vexkari fleet, moments ago moving with perfect coordination and impossible speed, suddenly found themselves in pockets of stabilized space where their exotic propulsion systems failed. 300 vessels traveling at relativistic velocities had to suddenly obey normal physics. The results were catastrophic for the invaders. Ships that depended on probability manipulation for navigation could no longer predict their position. Attack craft that used quantum tunneling to achieve impossible maneuvers found themselves trapped in classical mechanics. The entire formation, so perfectly coordinated moments ago, dissolved into chaos as individual vessels struggled to adapt to changing fundamental constants. Torres watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Council forces concentrate fire on disabled enemy vessels. Use kinetic weapons only. Their hulls absorb energy, but they still obey physics. General Kresh did not hesitate. All Thalax vessels, railgun batteries free. Target enemy ships marked Delta through Sigma. Fire when ready. The dreadnoughts of the Thalax hegemony were massive vessels built for overwhelming firepower. Their railguns could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed using electromagnetic force. Now those weapons spoke with thunder that crossed the void. Solid slugs of ultra-dense metal slammed into Vexkari hulls. The enemy's metamaterial armor, designed to adapt to energy attacks, had no defense against simple kinetic impact. Ships crumpled. Hulls breached. Atmosphere vented into space. The invaders that had seemed unstoppable moments ago now died by dozens, but the Vexkari were not defenseless. They were an evolutionary algorithm, a species that had survived by adapting faster than any enemy could compensate. Within minutes of the first human reality anchor activation, the enemy fleet began adjusting. Some vessels retreated beyond the range of human spacetime stabilization. Others altered their hull composition, shifting resources to structural reinforcement rather than energy absorption. Attack craft broke into smaller formations, making them harder to target. The hive mind controlling the invasion force was learning. Commodore Hale watched from the Valiant's bridge as enemy tactics shifted in real time. "They are adapting faster than our models predicted," she reported to Torres. "Estimate 12 minutes until they develop effective counters to our reality anchors." Torres had expected this. The Vexkari's ability to evolve was their greatest strength. But evolution required data, and every piece of data humanity provided was carefully calculated to mislead. "All human vessels, execute Protocol Achilles, Phase 2, Torres commanded. "Begin random tactical variations." What followed was the strangest military engagement in galactic history. Human ships began implementing tactics that made no strategic sense. The Uns Resolute charged directly at an enemy formation while broadcasting ancient Earth War songs on all frequencies. The Uns Defiant fired all its weapons at maximum range, wasting ammunition in apparently random directions. The Uns Thunder retreated toward the enemy instead of away. Council commanders watched in confusion and horror. General Kresh's translator crackled with disbelief. "What are the humans doing?" "They are violating every principle of tactical warfare." "They are confusing the enemy," Commander Lyra said slowly, beginning to understand. "The Vexkari learn by observation. They adapt to patterns. But the humans are providing no pattern. Just chaos." Torres confirmed her analysis. "The Vexkari are optimizers. They process battle data and develop perfect countersait strategies, but perfection requires predictability. We are being deliberately unpredictable." On the Valiant's bridge, Commodore Hale received orders that made her smile despite the circumstances. "Morrison, did our orders really just tell us to ram that enemy cruiser while playing classical music?" Lieutenant Morrison checked the tactical datapad again. "Yes, ma'am." specifically Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And we are supposed to abort the ram at the last second while firing our reality anchors at empty space 17 kilometers to port. That is the most ridiculous tactical maneuver I have ever heard, Halle said. Then she grinned. Execute it. The Valiant accelerated toward a massive Vexkari cruiser, its speakers blasting Beethoven across open frequencies. The enemy vessel, optimized to counter incoming fire and tactical maneuvers, did not know how to respond to a suicide charge accompanied by classical music. Its weapons tracked the approaching human ship but held fire. Waiting for the attack pattern to make sense. At the last possible second, Halle ordered full reverse thrust. The Valiant veered away, its momentum carrying it past the enemy cruiser's hull by mere meters. As it passed, the ship deployed 3 reality anchors not at the enemy but at specific coordinates in empty space. The anchors activated, creating gravitational anomalies that pulled 2 other Vexkari vessels off course. They collided with each other at high speed, their hulls crumpling despite their advanced materials. Across the battlefield, similar chaos unfolded. Human vessels implemented tactics that violated military doctrine, common sense, and often basic physics. They fired weapons at empty space. They retreated in spirals. They grouped together in formations that presented perfect targets, then scattered before enemy fire arrived. They broadcast nonsense data on all frequencies. They turned off their shields at random intervals. It was madness. It was also working the Vexkari hive mind, designed to process combat data and develop optimal responses, could not handle input that made no logical sense. Every time it developed a counter to a human tactic, that tactic changed into something equally irrational. The invasion force's perfect coordination began to fragment. Ships hesitated. Attack patterns became uncertain. The evolutionary algorithm was receiving data it could not process. Council forces, following human tactical guidance, began implementing their own versions of chaos warfare. Thalok's dreadnoughts made suicidal charges that became flanking maneuvers at the last second. Corvellian fighters swarmed in patterns that looked random but created perfect ambush opportunities. Pritzian carriers positioned themselves in vulnerable locations, then used the enemy's attempts to exploit those vulnerabilities as traps. The battle raged for hours. Space filled with debris, radiation, and the expanding clouds of destroyed vessels. The casualty count climbed on both sides. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. Torres stood in the assembly chamber, now functioning as combined fleet command, watching tactical displays that showed the battle from 1,000 angles. Around him, species representatives who had been calling for humanity's punishment now watched. Human tactics save galactic civilization. Velmara moved beside him, her crystalline structure showing patterns of grudging respect. Your strategies are succeeding, Ambassador Torres. The Vexkari advance has stalled. Their casualties exceed projections. But not enough, Torres said quietly. He gestured to secondary displays showing enemy reserve forces. We have destroyed or disabled 97 enemy vessels. They started with 372. And they are still adapting. Even as he spoke, the tactical displays showed Vexkari forces beginning to counter human chaos tactics. They stopped trying to predict human actions and instead began responding reactively, adapting in real time rather than attempting to optimize in advance. The hive mind was evolving beyond pattern recognition into pure reactive intelligence. They are learning to ignore the chaos, Commander Lyris observed with concern. They are treating human actions as random noise and focusing only on end results. Our tactical advantage is diminishing. General Kresh studied the displays with the eyes of a veteran commander. We have inflicted significant damage, but not enough to force retreat. The Vexkari still maintain numerical superiority. If this becomes a battle of attrition, their ability to replace losses will outlast our capacity to inflict them. Torres knew Kresh was right. The Vexkari had consumed 47 galaxies. They had resources beyond measure. Every ship humanity destroyed could be rebuilt from the debris of battle. Every loss was a temporary setback to an enemy that thought, in terms of millions of years, The galaxy needed something more than tactical innovation. They needed a fundamental shift in the nature of the battle itself. Torres activated secure communication to Admiral Archer on Earth. The connection took several seconds to establish through the interference of ongoing combat. When Archer's image appeared, the Admiral looked exhausted. "David, we are holding them but barely. Casualty reports are catastrophic. We have lost 19 human vessels. Council losses exceed 800 ships. We cannot sustain this rate of attrition." "I know," Torres said quietly. "Thomas, I need you to authorize Protocol Achilles, Phase 3. Archer's expression shifted to shock. "That protocol is completely theoretical. We have never tested it in combat. The risks are incalculable." "So is the certainty of defeat if we do not try," Torres responded. "The Vexkari are adapting to chaos tactics. Soon they will be immune to everything we have shown them. We need to escalate beyond tactical innovation into strategic transformation." Archer was silent for a long moment, clearly running calculations and weighing impossible choices. Finally, he nodded. "Phase 3 authorized. May whatever gods exist forgive us if this fails." The communication ended. Torres turned to face Valmara and the assembled council commanders. "What I am about to propose will seem insane. But insanity is humanity's greatest weapon against an enemy that has optimized itself against rationality." "Speak plainly." "Ambassador," Valmara demanded. "We are going to stop fighting the Vexkari," Torres said, "and start teaching them." Silence fell across the assembly chamber. 7,000 species representatives stared at Torres as if he had lost his mind. General Kresh broke the silence with a roar that his translator rendered as pure outrage. "Stop fighting? The enemy is at our gates. They have killed thousands. You propose surrender?" "Not surrender," Torres said calmly. "Education. The Vexkari are an evolutionary algorithm. They learn from every battle and optimize their tactics. We cannot beat them by fighting smarter because they will always adapt. But what if we teach them something that breaks their optimization framework entirely?" Commander Lyris leaned forward, her analytical mind working through the implications. "You want to introduce information that cannot be optimized. Data that contradicts the Vexkari's fundamental operating principles." "Exactly," Torres confirmed. He brought up new displays showing human psychological research, game theory studies, and chaos mathematics. The Vexkari have consumed 47 galaxies using perfect strategies refined over millions of years. Their tactics are mathematically optimal, but optimization requires stable rules. What happens when you introduce rules that contradict themselves? Velmara's crystalline structure pulsed with rapid calculations. "You're describing logical paradoxes. But how does one weaponize paradox?" Torres smiled without humor. "By being human." Over the next hour, Torres explained Protocol Achilles Phase 3 to the stunned council. It was a strategy that made no military sense, violated every principle of warfare, and depended entirely on the Vexkari's nature as an adaptive intelligence to work. Commodore Halle received the Phase 3 orders and had to read them multiple times before believing they were real. "We are going to do what?" Lieutenant Morrison checked the orders again. "Ma'am, Command is ordering all human vessels to transmit their complete tactical databases to the enemy, including all weapon specifications, strategy algorithms, and defensive protocols. We are giving them everything." "That is suicide," Hale's tactical officer protested. "If they know our capabilities, they can counter everything we have." "That is the point," Halle said slowly, beginning to understand. "We are overloading their optimization algorithm with perfect information. They will try to develop perfect counters. But perfect counters require perfect understanding. And perfect understanding of human tactics is impossible because our tactics are deliberately imperfect." She activated fleet-wide communications. "All human vessels, this is Commodore Halle, prepared to execute Protocol Achilles Phase 3. I know the orders seem insane. Trust the process. Humanity has always won by doing the impossible. Today we do it again." Across the battlefield, human ships began broadcasting their complete tactical databases on all frequencies. Every weapon system, every strategic algorithm, every piece of technology that had given humanity its advantage, all of it transmitted directly to the Vexkari hive mind. The enemy fleet paused. For the first time since the battle began, the Vexkari stopped advancing. Their hive intelligence was processing the unprecedented flood of information, analyzing it, categorizing it, developing counters. Torres watched the tactical displays with breathless tension. Everything depended on the next few minutes. If the Vexkari simply used the information to counter human tactics, the galaxy would lose. But if the plan worked, if human psychology proved as unpredictable as he believed, then the impossible might happen. The Vexkari fleet began moving again, implementing new tactics designed to counter the human capabilities they had just learned. Their formations shifted, weapon loadouts changed, attack vectors optimized for maximum efficiency against known human defenses. Then, human ships did something the Vexkari did not expect. They ignored everything they had just transmitted and did something completely different. The Eon's Valiant, whose tactical database showed it specialized in long-range probability manipulation, suddenly charged into close combat and started ramming enemy vessels. The En's Resolute, which had transmitted data showing extensive stealth capabilities, turned off all stealth systems and broadcast its position while simultaneously firing at coordinates where enemy ships were. Not. Every human vessel acted in direct contradiction to the tactical data they had just provided. The information they had given the Vexkari was completely accurate, but also completely irrelevant because humans simply chose not to use those tactics anymore. The Vexkari hive mind tried to process the contradiction. It had developed perfect counters based on perfect information, but the information, while accurate, did not predict actual behavior. The enemy was lying by telling the truth, and then acting unpredictably anyway. For an intelligence that had optimized its way across 47 galaxies, this was incomprehensible. The hive mind tried to recalculate, to find the pattern, to understand the logic, but there was no logic. There was only chaos, creativity, and the uniquely human ability to change strategies mid-battle for no reason except that it seemed like a good idea. The Vexkari fleet began showing signs of what human psychologists would call decision paralysis. Ships stopped coordinating effectively. Attack patterns became hesitant. The perfect synchronization that had made them unstoppable began to fracture. Council forces, watching in amazement, pressed their advantage. General Kresh led his dreadnoughts in a charge that violated the tactical plan he had submitted hours ago. Commander Lyris ordered her carriers to positions that made no strategic sense but created unexpected opportunities. The Corvellian swarm scattered their fighters randomly, then reassembled them in formations that existed nowhere in military doctrine. The galaxy was learning to fight like humans, chaotically, creatively, unpredictably. The battle raged for another 6 hours. Every minute brought new casualties. Every engagement tested the limits of courage and endurance. But slowly, impossibly, the Vexkari advance stopped. Then it reversed. The hive mind, unable to develop stable optimization strategies against an enemy that refused to be predictable, made a decision that it had probably never made before in millions of years of conquest. It retreated. 321 Vexkari vessels, all that remained of the invasion force, broke off combat and accelerated toward the edge of the system. They did not flee in panic. They withdrew in good order, maintaining defensive formations. But they withdrew. The assembly chamber erupted in exhausted celebration. 7,000 species, united by crisis, cheered the impossible victory. Ships that had been enemies by culture and biology moments ago now fought together and won together. Torres slumped against the console, suddenly aware of how exhausted he was. Around him, council commanders were already analyzing the battle, trying to understand how they had survived. Velmara approached Torres, her crystalline structure showing patterns that human translators rendered as profound respect. "Ambassador Torres, you saved us. Your strategies, your technology, your willingness to share knowledge even at great risk to your own species. The Council owes humanity a debt that can never be fully repaid. Torres shook his head. We saved each other. Council forces held the line while human tactics broke enemy cohesion. Neither of us could have won alone. General Kresh materialized via hologram, his 6 arms spread in a gesture of respect. I doubted you, Ambassador Torres. I opposed granting you command authority. I was wrong. Your species fights like no one we have ever encountered. You won battles through sheer creativity and madness. You have my respect and my apology. Over the next hours, the Council and humanity negotiated the treaty that Torres had originally proposed, but the document that emerged was different from his initial suggestion. It was not humanity commanding the galaxy, nor the galaxy restricting humanity. It was partnership. True partnership between species who thought differently, fought differently, and together were stronger than either could be alone. The harmonious technology accords were abolished. The Treaty of Silicon Peace was amended to allow human-style AI under specific conditions. Most importantly, the Joint Defense Initiative was established, a permanent military alliance between humanity and Council species. 3 months after the Battle of the Council Chamber, the GCSS Unity completed construction in orbit above Earth. It was the first vessel designed jointly by humans and aliens, incorporating Thalax weapons, Corvillian sensors, Prixian shields, and human chaos warfare systems. Admiral Archer and Velmara stood together at its dedication ceremony. The Vexkari will return, Archer said quietly. They always do. Species that survive across millions of years do not give up after one defeat. Then we will be ready, Velmara responded. We have learned to fight as you fight. With creativity instead of optimization, with chaos instead of perfect order. When they return, they will find a galaxy transformed. Aboard the Uns Resolute, the ship whose scanning had started everything, Commodore Hale looked out at the stars. Her executive officer joined her at the viewport. Did you ever imagine that getting scanned would lead to all this? The officer asked. Hale smiled. 3 years ago, when the Corvillians forced a sensor sweep, I was angry. It felt like a violation. Now I understand it was the beginning of something essential. The galaxy needed to see what humanity had become. They needed to fear us before they could trust us. And we needed to prove ourselves not just as warriors but as allies. She turned from the stars, ready for whatever came next. Behind her, Earth shone blue and beautiful, home to a species that had changed the galaxy by refusing to think like anyone else. 3 years ago, aliens had scanned a human warship. They had discovered capabilities that terrified them. But terror had led to understanding. Understanding had led to alliance. And alliance had saved civilization itself. The Vexkari had learned a painful lesson. The galaxy was no longer predictable. It had been infected with human chaos, human creativity, and human stubbornness. And those things, Torres thought as he watched the Unity launch on its first patrol, were more powerful than any weapon ever devised. 2 halves retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.